here's the thing. There's men and there's women. So here's the basic assumption of what I'm talking about. The thing that's gonna fight against your friendship is the differences between men and women. It's just what it is. I'm not making a political statement. I'm just making a science. This is science. There are men and there are women. There was Pastor Kevin was actually talking with a university professor the other day, because in a couple weeks, he's going to do a whole week on this, the difference between men and women in roles in marriage. And he asked the guy, secular scholar in psychology, he said, are there differences between men and women? And the guy said, yeah, we've basically deduced there's about 6,000 differences between men and women. So let me explain one of the big ones. It all begins when you're a baby. When we're in utero, in our mom's stomach, there's things that happen to our brains. And if you go read Dr. Luann Brisendine's book, The Female Brain, I had to read that book because I had 3 daughters and I had to figure women out. So it's a very big book. So the female brain talks about the idea that when you are in utero, testosterone floods the brain of a boy, and estrogen floods the brain of a girl. So here's what happens. We have left hemisphere and right hemisphere of brain, and what connects the left and right hemispheres of our brain is something called the corpus callosum. That is the road that connects left and right hemisphere. So here's what happens. To a boy, what floods the brain is testosterone, and so for a woman, estrogen floods her brain. And what it does to the corpus callosum is it enhances what it does. It makes it better at communicating with left and right hemispheres. It's like a superhighway. It just goes from a road to a superhighway, where women, and every study that's been done has been women are smarter than men, right? Right? And that's why. Because the corpus callosum gets flooded with estrogen and it makes it better. Here's the problem. When testosterone floods the brain, what do you think it does to the corpus callosum? Destruction, utter destruction. Right? Now this is science, all right? This isn't some Christian nonsense. This is science. The corpus callosum gets flooded by sexuality and aggression, right? Which is probably not surprising, right? So in a boy, it gets flooded with sexuality and aggression. So here's what happens. And we know this, right? The difference between men and women, it's so like women are just more naturally nurturing, right? And I'm just talking about, I just think of my daughters. It might not be true about every single person, man, but my daughters, ever since they were like for a boy, probably the first baby you ever change the diaper of is who? Like your own kid, right? But like my girls, they've been changing little babies' diapers since they were in diapers themselves. But rarely do we just hand some 14-year-old boy our baby, right? Just go, hey, change the diaper. It just doesn't happen. It tends to be, but women, it's like, I could have given my girls when they were little babies a gun, and they would have wrapped that thing in a blanket and gone, here, sucky baby, all right? It just would have happened. They're just more nurturing. My wife, it's like her whole life is about the flourishing of those kids. That's what she wants. So if we went down on a ship or something, she'd be, those kids would be like, she'd be holding them above the water as she died. Where I'd be like, which one of these kids is most floaty, right? I mean, I literally, no joke, I literally remember the first time I took my daughter Sienna, she was 1 year old, and we went swimming in this public swimming pool. And we're swimming, and we get out of the pool, and I had only brought one towel. And so this whole locker room there is freezing. And she's sitting there looking up at me with these big squirrel eyes, and she's shaking, right? And I'm like, boy, they should get some more towels around here. I don't know what's wrong with this place. Literally, that's a true story. And I'm like, wait a minute. I gotta reevaluate my life here. So here's what happens. When testosterone floods the corpus callosum, it destroys it. All right, so the left and right brain is not connecting. All right, so this means women, so picture this, women, you have this super highway of information. It's 14 lanes, 3,000 cars, they're running smooth, information, such clarity. A man has this old jalopy that he's driving down the road, trying not to fall off the side of the road. That's literally what's happening in the left to right brain. That's just science. And that's why men are like when they're looking in the fridge, they're like, it's not there. It's not there. It's not there. And you can just walk by and go, boom, idiot, all right? And just go. That's why you have an ability, according to science, to exegete a situation and go, okay, this is why men, They have compartmentalized lives, right? They just know. So it's like, so the one image is that men are like, they have these boxes in a garage, and they're all these topics, but they're all self-contained. They never touch each other, right? That's why when you're in the house, it's like the kids can be crying, and the dude's like, so are we gonna do it? And you're like, no, we're not gonna do it. Don't you see? The kids are crying. And you're like, so is that a maybe? Like they're almost dead, right? But for a woman, she's more like Christmas lights that are all bundled together, as one writer has said. That the budget has to do with sex, has to do with kids, has to do with the history, has to do with the conversation we had 2 weeks ago, everything. And that's why she's stressed, because she's trying to solve all those problems, where you as a man aren't. So literally, Dr. Byzantine says this, this is a quote from a book, this is not me, men's brain activity can actually flatline. Right? And you guys know this, that's your best time of the day. Right? You're driving, you're like, I'm out. And women's, according to science, they can't flatline. They're constantly going. So they're thinking about that thing 12 and a half years ago at that Christmas party where your sister gave those earrings to your grandma, and now grandma's dead, but you don't care because you're gonna bring it up. Like, that is the complexity of the difference between man and woman. And the problem is, it's creating conflict in your life because, and this is the big principle here, this is the point of me saying all of this. The point is this, and this is the principle that'll ride through this whole 7-week series. Not wrong, just different.